Tonight on Channel 6 Action News at 11, two more University of Miami students come back to South Florida to recover from a spring break tragedy. And Super Tuesday results at 11.
The headlines at this hour. Southern comfort for Democrat Bill Clinton. He marches strongly across the South, taking all 6 primary states at stake tonight in the southern region. Tsongas takes 2 in New England. President Bush sweeps the South, but fails to sweep away the Pat Buchanan protest vote. And Buchanan takes at least some of the starch out of the rival David Duke campaign.
Campaign 92, Super Tuesday. From CBS News Election Headquarters in New York, here is Dan Rather.
Good evening. Super Tuesday, biggest night so far of Campaign 92. In some ways, it may prove to be decisive. A whole delicatessen worth of convention delegates, a third of the delegates needed to win the Republican and Democratic presidential nominations. And the mist is starting to lift at least a little from the Campaign 92 muddle about who's up, who's down, who's ahead, and why. Now, the polls have just closed in 2 more of the 11 states holding primaries and caucuses tonight. Let's look them over. First, on the Democratic side, in Louisiana, Bill Clinton from neighboring Arkansas, the governor there, wins easily. In Rhode Island, another easy winner, Paul Tsongas, wins in his neighboring from Massachusetts, Rhode Island. In Texas, Clinton, a huge winner. Tsongas so far back, he can't see Clinton's taillights. A bit of a surprise to the Tsongas people, but not that much. In Florida, perhaps the biggest storyline of the night in Florida, Clinton, whom some thought might have a tough time from Tsongas, doesn't. You see the figures there. This is going to be talked up with the Clinton campaign, giving Clinton big momentum for next Tuesday's showdowns in Illinois and Michigan as the campaign turns northward. In Mississippi, Clinton rolls there. Brown running second in Mississippi, but frankly, Brown and Tsongas so far back that it doesn't matter much. Clinton a big winner all through the Delta area. In Tennessee, a southern border state that tends to go Republican in presidential campaigns, Clinton wins big in the Democratic primary. Ditto in Oklahoma. Because of a snafu with Tsongas' staff, Tsongas is not only on the ballot in Oklahoma, so Jerry Brown can and probably will claim second in Oklahoma, but remember, Tsongas wasn't on the ballot there. And in Massachusetts, as expected, winning in the state he once represented in the United States Senate, Paul Tsongas. Now, a mild surprise, at least, which Jerry Brown will no doubt talk up, he's running second in Massachusetts. Now, among the Republicans, late returns, George Bush wins in Louisiana. In Rhode Island, George Bush also wins in Rhode Island. Earlier tonight, George Bush wins in Texas. He also carries Florida. However, these are the Texas returns. As you can see, the combination of Buchanan and Duke did not reach 30% in Texas, at least not yet. In Florida, though, while President Bush wins in Florida, Pat Buchanan is currently running at the pace of about 1/3 of the Republican vote. And that gives Buchanan heart as he heads for Illinois and Michigan. Moving along with the Republican returns, it's a wipeout night for George Bush in terms of carrying the states. However, he does not put a stake through the heart of the protest vote, not nearly yet. In Mississippi, the president carries, it's one of his better states, but still the protest vote against him in Mississippi runs on the order of 25%, with 11% of the precincts reporting. In Oklahoma, I should say in Tennessee first, the president normally does well in Tennessee. He does again tonight in the primary, but the Buchanan-Duke protest vote running on the order of 23% combined. And in Oklahoma, President Bush well ahead of Buchanan and Duke, but once again, Buchanan and Duke combined nearing, somewhat less than 1/3 in terms of a protest vote. This is developing into a pattern, of course, except in Massachusetts, President Bush with 64% of the vote thus far, Buchanan and Duke running at roughly 30% with their protest. One storyline of the night is Duke is doing much more poorly this evening than many people say 2 months ago would have thought possible. Now, basic storyline, Clinton wins Florida big. Tsongas finishes far behind him. Clinton sweeps the entire South, and Clinton now has momentum for the Democratic nomination. No one doubts that President Bush's health holds, and there's no reason to think it won't, that President Bush is going to wind up with the Republican nomination. I should say a caveat to that because Pat Buchanan doubts that President Bush will get the nomination. But the protest vote particularly when you combine Buchanan and Duke, continues to run at least what some would consider to be reasonably high. To discuss that with us now, the Vice President of the United States and the man who was President Bush's running mate last time around, expected to be running mate again this time around, the Vice President of the United States, Dan Quayle. Thanks for being with us, Mr. Vice President. Question, first of all, Pete Wilson, the governor of California, Rich Bond, the head of the Republican National Committee, and Sam Skinner, the chief of the White House staff, has begun opening up on Pat Buchanan, saying in effect that he's racist overtones to his campaign, anti-Semitic overtones to the campaign. Do you agree with that?
Well, obviously, Dan, a lot of Pat Buchanan's views and a lot of his statements are troubling to all of us. But Pat Buchanan is not the issue. The fact of the matter is the president's going to be the nomination. There is a protest vote, as you reported, about 1/3. We intend to get that protest vote. I've been traveling all over the country. People have come up to me and said, look, we're not going to vote for you this time, but we'll be with you in November. We want to send a message. And we've gotten the message. People are fed up with Washington. They're fed up with high taxes. They're fed up with too much regulation. They're fed up with a bad economy. And George Bush has an agenda to change things.
Mr. Vice President, I want to ask this question respectfully but directly. With Pat Buchanan averaging roughly 30% of the vote in Republican primaries, why should not you step aside this time and make Pat Buchanan the running mate with George Bush?
I can't see you, Dan, but I hope you're saying that with a straight face.
And the answer is not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
And you're not prepared to do that?
No.
How hurtful, Mr. Vice President, let's speak candidly, how hurtful are the comments of former President Reagan to the effect that he doesn't know what George Bush stands for, and former President Reagan saying that he doesn't agree with the president's policy towards Russia?
Well, I think you're probably talking about former President Reagan and former President Nixon in a comment today in one of the newspapers. Look, Dan, Ronald Reagan didn't say that. It was an anonymous source in a Los Angeles Times newspaper. You know how anonymous sources go. Ronald Reagan supports George Bush. Same way with former President Richard Nixon. He believes that George Bush has done a lot to win the Cold War. We've won the Cold War thanks to George Bush and Ronald Reagan, thanks to Republican leadership. We kicked Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait. And now that we've won the Cold War, we can focus on domestic matters, getting our education on top of things, reform agenda we have with the legal service system, reform agenda we have with the political system. We'd like to limit the terms of Congress like they limit the president. And the way things are going in the Democratic Congress these days with check bouncing to the tune of $11 million over the last 3 years, I think the American people would agree with this.
Mr. Vice President, is President Bush in the process of changing his message as of tonight?
Dan, his message has been the same. The message that the president has a jobs package on Capitol Hill. I don't know what the Democrats have to fear by passing the president's jobs package. Maybe they're afraid it's going to help George Bush. It will help America. We have a reform education agenda. Choice in education, competition education will help our kids. We have been trying to reform the legal system. The legal system costs the American people $300 billion a year. We have a reform agenda that will reduce those costs or reduce the delays and make it more fair for all. We have political reform. We have health care reform. The Democratic Congress simply stopping and denying the president's reform and action agenda that's pending on Capitol Hill. So the issue is going to be the Democratic Congress versus a Republican White House. And I think the American people would be afraid to put a Democratic president in with a Democratic Congress unless they just want more taxes and more bad times.
Mr. Vice President, live from Washington, thanks for being with us on this CBS News special broadcast. Now, let's turn to our CBS News correspondents covering the Republicans. First, White House correspondent Susan Spencer. Susan, you've just heard Vice President Quayle say, in effect, we think we have the right message. If I heard him correctly, maybe some adjustments, but basically they're sticking with it.
Yeah, I think, Dan, that what you've just heard is basically the two prongs of the Bush-Quayle attack from now on. First of all, you heard the Vice President suggest very strongly that since Pat Buchanan isn't going to be the nominee, why are we bothering with him? I think the White House is counting on the press becoming bored with this story and dismissing this 1/3 Republican protest vote as no longer interesting and not covering it anymore. The other thing that's significant about the Vice President's comments, I thought, was his repeated references to the Democratic Congress. President Bush is going to run against the Democrats on Capitol Hill until he has an opponent.
Susan Spencer at the White House. Thanks. Now let's go down to New Orleans and Eric Ingberg. Eric, what does all this mean for Pat Buchanan? He continues to ride on a strong protest vote, but he's yet to win a state anyway.
Well, Dan, Patrick Buchanan remains the 30-something candidate, which is a nice title for a television show, but it doesn't get you any delegates. Despite the fact that he is continuing to roll up that one-third protest vote all across the South and the northern primaries today, he is still looking at a somewhat bleak future if his intent was to really make a serious run at George Bush for the Republican Party nomination. Even if he intended to be a nuisance at the convention and fight it out over platform issues and so forth, his situation is not good at this point because the president is getting the delegates, even as Buchanan is getting a lot of the headlines and making a lot of the noise. And one of the things that I think would have to be troubling to the Buchanan people tonight, Dan, is that nowhere did he get the 36% of the vote that he got in Georgia last week or the 37% of the vote that he got in New Hampshire, which started this campaign, the Buchanan campaign, on its way. Now, if Buchanan has got problems, David Duke has near-terminal problems as a national political figure. The ex-Klansman turned perennial candidate is not breaking through double figures even in his home state of Louisiana, and only in the state of Mississippi is he approaching double figures, Dan.
Eric Kingberg in New Orleans, thanks. I'm going to turn now to our chief Washington correspondent, our old friend Bob Schieffer, who joins us with highlights from our exit polls. Two stories are emerging, Bob. One is that Illinois and or Michigan now become, if not must-win states for Paul Tsongas, something close to that. And then the other big story is how the Democrats voted in Florida.
Well, I think so, and I think Florida is one of the more important things that happened tonight, Dan, because, you know, I think it was generally agreed if Paul Tsongas was going to do well outside his home region of New England, his best chance was going to be in Florida, which is more like a northern state than any other state across the South. But think about what happened. Now, Paul Tsongas in the past, his appeal has been to young voters, it has been to upscale voters. He thought he was going to do well among Jewish voters. But let's look at some of the exit polling from Florida. In Florida, Tsongas did not come close to getting a majority of those under 30, of those who were Jewish, those who had more money, or those who were college graduates. Then, as expected, Bill Clinton got big majorities of older voters, black voters, lower-income voters, and union households. So I think it's fair to say, Dan, that while neither Bill Clinton or Paul Tsongas has emerged as someone who can win outside his own region, when you look at what happened in Florida tonight, you have to say that tonight Bill Clinton is a candidate, the Democrat, who seems to have the best chance of doing that. And going back to the vice president's interview with you just a while ago, on the Republican side, this is, I think, without doubt, the best night yet for President Bush. But again tonight, the news is still not all good, because we found in our exit polling only 61% of the people who voted in the Republican primaries said they approve of how the president's doing his job. More than a third disapprove. That's the Pat Buchanan vote. You have to ask, who are those people going to vote for in November?
Bob Schieffer, thanks. When we come back, we'll be talking to the Democratic frontrunner, designated a frontrunner now by the voters, Arkansas Governor Bill Clinton. So stay here with us.
And I'm not really approving of any of them, but we need a change. The older people need to be looked after, and so I'm going for Clinton. But I'm not real happy about it.
It is the first element of creation. Nothing brings it more elegantly or shapes it more beautifully than Andersen windows and patio doors. Come, live in the light of Andersen windows. Come home to Andersen.
Introducing a new line of facial cleansers from Pond's. A range of extraordinary products that leave your skin feeling clean, refreshed, and radiant. Pond's. It brings out your natural radiance.
Whirlpool thinks a great refrigerator is one you barely even notice. Solidly built to last for years so you can all but ignore it. If you want a refrigerator so well built you don't have to think about it, think about Whirlpool.
Based on the true story, the phone call every family fears.
She was attacked this morning, and she was raped.
One of the few rape victims.
He said that if I went to the police, he would kill the children.
I'm the one who was violated.
To agree to go public.
I can do your story. You would use my real name?
In the hope of keeping her family together.
Got to know if you still love me.
An ordinary woman, an extraordinary story. Emmy winner Patricia Wendig, Taking Back My Life. Sunday, parental discretion advised.
Wednesday.
You have been accepted to one of the finest high schools in the United States.
Nobody ever asked me if I wanted to go there.
Sometimes you just can't run from a fight.
If he really doesn't want to go, I don't think we should make him.
Oh, so now you're saying that our 14-year-old son knows best?
It's time for us to go someplace.
I always wanted to go someplace.
The episode to share with family, Brooklyn Bridge, Wednesday.
What do you do when your marriage fails? Divorce, American style.
The litigation will go on for years.
How would you react to the high cost of divorce?
I would go into a coma.
In Bradley Street Stories, Thursday.
March Madness, the tournament on CBS.
Back at our CBS News election headquarters in New York, live, let's quickly review the 6 states that Arkansas Governor Bill Clinton has won tonight. Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Oklahoma, and perhaps the biggest of the big, Florida. It's clear that Governor Clinton has rolled through the southern primaries like a big wheel through a Delta cotton field. He's with us live tonight, joining us from Chicago, where he's already campaigning for next week Illinois primary, and he'll be moving on to Michigan, where they also have their primary next week. Governor Clinton, thanks for being with us. Congratulations on your win tonight. Clearly, there's a lot of sunshine in the South for you, but exit polls in Massachusetts and Rhode Island indicate that possibly a majority of Democratic voters in those primaries say, and I'm reading here because I want to do it accurately, that they don't think you have the honesty or integrity to be president. Now, is that or is it not going to be a major problem for you outside the South?
No. I think the people of the South are just as concerned with honesty, integrity, and traditional values as any people in this country. In fact, they've been voting for them for a long time. The difference is, I had a chance to campaign here. They heard the worst about me, but they also listened to the best. To be fair, the people in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, I didn't campaign there. I didn't come there and contest Senator Tsongas in his home state. And he said some pretty rough things about me in the last few days, and I've been subject to the most vicious personal attacks of anyone I can remember. So I think that it's interesting and amazing almost in a state we contested, Florida, another state we contested, Texas, a state we contested, Tennessee, where they knew what I stood for. They knew my commitment that lasted more than a decade to fight for change in my own state. They knew what I believed in. The people voted for me. And I think when we move into the Middle Western heartland and then beyond to the other states, where people have a chance not only to hear the bad, but to see the good and to see that I'm fighting for something much bigger than myself, trying to fundamentally change this country, I think we'll be okay.
Governor Clinton, you're very experienced in campaigning. In a sentence or two, what is your main message? You have a lot of messages, but what's the gut, the heart of your message?
We have to go beyond the brain-dead politics of both parties in Washington. We need not a politics for the 80s. We need a new economic program and a new people-based economics for the 90s. That's my message. I've worked hard for more than 10 years to understand what in the world is going on in this economy and why people who are playing by the rules and doing the best they can are losing out. And that's my message. I know why. I know what we can do. It's going to take a new spirit of cooperation. And in the debate that I just heard the Vice President throw out there, one more time trying to blame the Congress instead of rolling up your sleeves, taking responsibility for the country, and working for change, that is a loser if I ever heard it. If we vote for that for 4 more years, we are in deep trouble.
Governor Clinton, nearly everywhere I go, Texas, Washington, D.C., Illinois, California, I find Democrats saying, many of them, I like Bill Clinton, but I have a feeling, this is their words, not mine, that the Republicans are kind of desperados waiting for a train. They're just waiting for him to get the nomination, and then they're going to dump all kinds of bad stuff on him because they've got it. You know that's out there.
Well, they've been dumping on me for quite some time. As soon as I got ahead of Bush in the polls, I started dealing with the dump. I've been through these campaigns for 17 years. I've never been in a campaign where people, for some reason, didn't try to attack my character and go after me personally because they knew I was fighting for change, for something bigger than myself. That's the only reason I've survived in Arkansas, because people know I share their values, and I've never claimed to be a perfect person, Dan, but I'll tell you what, where I come from, character is picking yourself up, admitting your mistakes, going on, and continuing to fight for what's right. That's what I've done. And I think as people get to know me, after all, I just appeared in the lives of millions of people in America. And those that hear the good and the bad, I think will vote for change. They'll vote for the kind of commitment I've demonstrated at home. They'll vote for me for the same reason that Republicans and independents have joined Democrats in my state for years in voting for change.
Governor Clinton, live from Chicago, a winner in 6 important primaries tonight, including perhaps the big one in Florida. Thanks for being with us live.
Thank you.
Now, any important component of a Democratic win is a significant vote among those Americans who are black. Bob Schieffer takes a look now at how African Americans voted this day and this evening.
Well, that's one reason that Governor Clinton is winning big, Dan, is because he is winning overwhelmingly among black voters. He's getting more than 80%, according to our exit polling. That's very impressive, even when you compare it to the 90% that Jesse Jackson got in 1988. Paul Tsongas apparently has managed fewer than 1 black voter in 10. Now, that is the good news part of the side of it for the Democrats tonight. The other side is that in 1988, blacks were almost 1/4 of the people who voted on Super Tuesday. Today, that was down to about only 17%, and that may be even worse than it looks, because there's apparently a light turnout across the South tonight. That's 17% of a smaller total vote. So it's not all good news on that front for the Democrats.
Thank you, Bob. Joining us now live from our Washington studios is United States member of the House of Representatives, Congressman John Lewis of Georgia, who has endorsed Governor Clinton, did some time ago. Congressman, thank you for being with us. Congratulations on helping Bill Clinton win Georgia a week ago, and now come back to Tuesday and help him. But you have said that Bill Clinton, in terms of civil rights, and I quote you now, not only talks the talk, but walks the walk. Why don't Paul Tsongas and Jerry Brown do the same thing, or do they, and you're just not willing to say they do?
No, I think Bill Clinton understands the black community. He is a Southerner. He understands the black South, but I think he understands the needs and the problems of black Americans, whether they be in Georgia or in Tennessee, or whether they are in Michigan or in Illinois.
Congressman, we need to take a break. I hope you'll forgive me. We're going to take a break here and then come back and continue our conversation with you. So hold on there live in our Washington studio. We'll be back to you in just a moment. And to those of you kind enough to listen in on our special CBS News broadcast tonight, we're going to take a short break. Stick here with us. We'll be back.
Kellogg's Cracklin' Oat brand tastes like little oatmeal cookies, which means grandmas are spending a lot less time in the kitchen.
Hit this little accelerator right here and boom, you're gone, okay?
Cracklin' Oat brand's great oatmeal cookie taste comes from crunchy whole grain oats, which are baked with a touch of brown sugar. So now you can have that delicious cookie taste whenever, which is why grandmas are spending less time making cookies.
Ooh, what's that?
And more time sewing oats. Kellogg's Cracklin' Oat brand oatmeal cookie taste like grandma used to make.
My granny's spaghetti recipe. With ordinary grated topping? Oops. Some are 1/3 fats and fillers, but Kraft is 100% grated Parmesan for 100% great taste. Granny would approve.
Introducing Maxwell House Light. It tastes as rich as Maxwell House coffee, but only has half the caffeine. So rich, you'll just think of it as Maxwell House. New Maxwell House Light. All the rich taste, half the caffeine.
This is a Channel 6 Action News election update. Campaign 92, Florida votes.
Good evening from Texas to Tennessee to Florida. It's a southern sweep for Democrat Bill Clinton.
Florida was the one southern state Paul Tsongas thought he had a chance in, but the voters thought otherwise. These are the latest numbers. It's Clinton with 51%, Tsongas with 32%. Jerry Brown is a distant third with 14% of the votes counted. Only a handful of former candidates, Tom Harkin and Bob Curry.
Now, if you think those numbers are putting Clinton supporters in a partying mood, I suspect you're right.
Action News anchor Diana Morgan joins us live from the Miami Airport Hilton, where the party's now in full swing. Diana?
Hi, Barb and John. The crowd here was going crazy just a few minutes ago when they were watching Clinton being interviewed live from Chicago by Dan Rather. There has definitely been a party mood here. We've been hearing the James Brown song, I Feel Good, all night long. And of course they feel great, because none of these people in their wildest dreams imagined that he would win by such a wide margin here tonight. Of course, it's absolutely amazing And you can see some of the crowd right now, and they're still celebrating and hearing the great news about those 6 victories. Not great news, though, for Paul Tsongas and his campaign. Dave Game is standing by live. Dave?
Well, Diana, it was certainly not good news when they watched Clinton here just a few minutes ago, but they're saying that all is not a total loss in Florida. After all, Tsongas did better here than he did in any other state in the South, and they're saying that's at least good news. They would have liked to see him done better, but they're saying now that he's going to move out into neutral territory where he can really prove himself. They also point to the wins out of state in the North as being good news. So all in all, there's some fair optimism here tonight as Tsongas leaves the South and moves into other parts of the country. And that's the story from here. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Let's take a look now at how the Democrats in Dade and Broward counties voted.
In Dade first, Jerry Brown is getting 11% of the vote, Bill Clinton 54%, Paul Tsongas 28%. That is with 49 of 504 precincts reporting.
In Broward, Jerry Brown has 10%, Bill Clinton 54%, and Paul Tsongas 33%. That's with 41% reporting. Now, when we come back, the Republicans.
How Florida voted, plus breakdowns for Dade and Broward.
And a live report from a party for the president 60 seconds from now.
We're working hard every day, taking pride in what we do.
You know, you can get a can of beans anywhere, but when you come in my store, I'm going to bag them better than anybody else.
We're Dixie. We're Dixie.
Not a boring job.
Low prices, that's our promise, that's our way.
Everyday low price for everyday life.
Yo, come on, move this. Shake that body. Shake that body. Baby, let me show you how to do this. You gotta move this. You gotta move that. Shake that body for me.
Revlon guaranteed nail enamel. 85 colors guaranteed to be the best you've ever worn.
President Bush expected to win big in Florida, and he has.
Here are the latest numbers. With 44% of the precincts reporting, the president has a solid 2-to-1 lead over Pat Buchanan. It's a lead he's held since the first votes were counted more than 2 hours ago. Few people doubted that Florida is Bush country.
Well, you'll get no argument from the folks packing into the Sheraton River House. With them right now is Action News anchor Ken Mack.
Ken, looks like the party's going to be going strong all night.
Barbara, they've been very confident down here all night, but the turnout here isn't exactly what they expected. However, it certainly wasn't without excitement. At 6 o'clock, I told you, right next door, there was a murder mystery play underway. Well, when the shots were fired, some people really didn't know what was going on, scattered and never came back. That's not the reason for the poor turnout, though. A little bit later, Jeb Bush took the stand, and he was thanking everybody for their support here and welcoming back those who are Buchanan supporters to the party when a group of AIDS activists interrupted, and they were quietly ushered out the front door. So there's been a lot of excitement here. Let's find out what's going on at Buchanan headquarters now. Action News reporter Ileana Varela is there.
Ken, you might be surprised, but there's been some actual celebrating here tonight. That's because Buchanan supporters never expected a win. In fact, they said 30 to 35%. If they got that, they'd be happy. And that may not seem like a lot, but it's not bad when you consider how little money, about $5,000, was spent on the campaign in Florida, and the fact that the candidate himself only visited South Florida once, very brief stop at the airport, and that was 2 weeks ago. So the mood here, you may be surprised, but it's a lot better than expected. Back to you.
But of course, that means no delegates.
Well, no delegates, but they have a feeling that they're going to have a lot more clout when come convention time, and they're going to use it.
Okay, we'll see how it goes. Thank you, Ileana. Let's take a look now at the breakdown of how Republicans in Dade and Broward counties voted today.
In Dade County, George Bush got 87% of the vote, while Pat Buchanan garnered 13%. That's with 49% of the precincts reporting.
In Broward, the president got 67%, while Pat Buchanan got 32% of the vote. That is with 41% of the precincts reporting. We'll be standing by throughout the evening, and of course, we'll bring you the very latest results. I'm John Hebert.
And I'm Barbara Sloan. Keep it here for the latest from Campaign 92.
Wouldn't it be nice if life could be a little easier?
Hello.
Southern Bell has lots of services that can help. And if you call now, you can get them connected free. You probably know how handy call waiting is. My calls get through too. With Call Return, your phone can call back the last number that called you. And my favorite, Caller ID. It shows you the number that's calling.
Hi, hon. Everything's under control.
With more than one service, you get discounts. And best of all, there's no charge to connect these services and others if you call now. That's 1-800-331-BELL.
Order call waiting, call return, or caller ID now, and the connection is free. Call Southern Bell toll-free, 1-800-331-BELL.
Make your life a touch easier. Call Southern Bell now.
Tornadoes rip a deadly trail through the South. Channel 6 at 11.
CBS News coverage of Super Tuesday continues. From News Election Headquarters in New York, here again is Dan Rather.
Good evening again, and welcome back on a winning Super Tuesday night in the South for the Bush-Quayle re-election team and for Arkansas Governor Bill Clinton. President Bush sweeps every primary state up for grabs tonight. It's a total blowout for him in terms of win, but he still cannot grab away Pat Buchanan's consistent and persistent protest vote. It's been a good evening for Buchanan on some counts, especially in Florida. On the Democratic side, Bill Clinton marches through the South, too. The five-time Arkansas governor sweeps all the states in his home region, including Florida, and Paul Tsongas takes the two states on his own home turf in New England. Now, let's look over what Bill Clinton has won on this very big night for him. Clinton clearly now has become the front runner. He's been designated that by the voters. May not stay that way, but that's the way it is as of now, because with 2,145 delegates needed to win at the Democratic Convention in New York this summer, Clinton, on the basis of tonight's showing, has, by our CBS News estimate, at least 735. The others are in the totals you see. Harkins dropped out, and Jerry Brown trails badly. So Clinton leaves the South as the campaign turns toward Illinois and Michigan with a long lead in delegates. He is not yet by any means a cinch to win the Democratic nomination, but he does have a lead. Now, with 1,105 convention delegates needed to win by the Republicans, George Bush, by our CBS News estimate, has at least 680. And by almost everybody's agreement, George Bush will be the Republican nominee, unless something happens to his health, and no reason to believe that's going to happen. Pat Buchanan, as you can see, trails so badly there, is being left in the dust. But Buchanan is running your classic protest movement. He's running a two-track campaign. One is to get his message across that he is the leader of the Republican conservative, some would say reactionary movement, and two, to position himself for the 1996 campaign. So, Bush wins all the states up for grab tonight. Buchanan has his moments in some of the states. Bill Clinton wins all of the South. Tsongas wins Massachusetts and Rhode Island. With that as background, we want to note that most of the candidates have already moved on to Michigan and Illinois, the next two states up in Campaign 92, next week. But Paul Tsongas is home tonight in Lowell, Massachusetts, where he cast his vote and where he just finished a rally with the hometown crowd. Senator Tsongas joins us live from his hometown in Lowell, Massachusetts now. Senator, thanks for being with us. Congratulations on your wins tonight in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. You've called this, I quote now, a silver medal performance, but isn't it, in fact, a case of trading insults with Clinton put you off your message and may have cost you Florida?
Well, the fact is that Bill Clinton has the endorsements and he has the money. We had the message, and clearly all the negative campaigning and advertising that he did had an effect. But clearly, you know, if you go back a month ago, and if I had said to you that we would win second place in every southern state, and people would have looked at me with some doubt. The fact is we did that. The other point I would add, Dan, is though 85% of the South now is already past us. So now we go into the rest of the country where I do not have that disadvantage. I will point out that I have won 5 states outside of my region, and Bill has only won 1. So now that we get into states where there's a more level playing field, and as we gain strength because we now can raise the money, I think you're going to see a very strong outcome.
Senator, a Democratic operative who does not want Bill Clinton to be the nominee told me tonight and I quote him now, he says, Tsongas doesn't have enough organization to win in Illinois. Michigan is his next best chance. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, I grant you that the political establishment is not with me. I mean, I'm a message. I'm trying to change the Democratic Party into a pro-economic growth party. Dan, you know as well as I do that when I began this a year ago, nobody gave me a chance to survive, even into New Hampshire. And the reason we're doing well, I mean, look at the poll that came out yesterday. I am the strongest Democrat against George Bush. Why? Because I can appeal to independents and to moderate Republicans as well as Democrats. So the message has to take root. And obviously, to the extent that we now are getting the kind of resources we need to be competitive, every day that goes by, we will be stronger.
We have only a few seconds left, Senator, but if elected president, what is the first thing you would do in brief to help the economy as quickly as possible?
First thing you do is you declare an economic emergency. No middle-class tax cut. That's pandering. That is pandering. We're going to take our resources and invest it and grow this country's economy. We're going to do the same thing the Japanese do and the Germans. And if this Democratic Party does not get off the middle-class tax cut and all these giveaways, tax credits for children that do nothing to grow this economy, we're going to lose. So that's why in the polls I do so well against George Bush, because people can look at me. I'm not Santa Claus. I'm not pandering. I'm going to grow this economy the way we know how it can be done.
Paul Tsongas, again, congratulations. A winner
Thanks,
tonight
Dan.
in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Thanks for being with us. Now, we've all heard the expression, it pays to advertise, but this year's crop of candidates knows only too well that reaching voters can take a lot of money. And with money tight, the candidates are scrambling to get their message out without spending a fortune. Paula Zahn from CBS This Morning joins us now with a look at how they're stretching their campaign dollars. Paula?
Dan, today's Super Tuesday is certainly the most taxing day of this election year, with 11 states voting. There was absolutely no way the candidates could effectively campaign in all the important cities and congressional districts. It's estimated that each campaign would have needed $15 million to blanket all those states with television commercials. This year's candidates had about $4 million to spend on Super Tuesday. That's half as much as the top candidates spent 4 years ago.
Vote Pat Buchanan for president.
Well, President Bush, the future of America. He'll put people first.
It's the money, it's the lobbyists.
For people in states that have just had primaries, it may be difficult to believe that there's actually a shortage of political commercials this year.
Real message to Congress, more education and job training.
For a change. Paid for by the Tsongas Committee.
That's because even the presidential candidate business is in a recession. Only President Bush's campaign has a lot of money.
So what they're having to do is try to do more with less.
Susan Estrich ran Michael Dukakis's successful Super Tuesday campaign in 1988.
You have to depend on what we call the free media. The free media is the news.
Once again, that is former Massachusetts Senator Paul Tsongas.
I think we're going to need this. I understand little Dan Quayle was in the area last night. Is that true?
This is my opponent, Panda Bear. Say anything.
That not only put Tsongas on TV, it put Bill Clinton on the defensive.
Now, if you want to talk about pandering, it wasn't me who went to New York and said that I'd be the best friend Wall Street ever had. It was Senator Tsongas.
Sometimes the candidates did little more than fly in and out of airports to make the news.
Democrat Jerry Brown stopped in at the airport on his way to Oklahoma City today.
By holding airport news conferences and flying off to do the same thing again and again, they found they could get on a lot of television stations. The reporters and airport security were the closest they got to voters.
They have to travel a great deal. On one typical day in the last few days, Clinton landed in 5 states.
But the candidates didn't have enough time to fly to all 60 television markets in the Super Tuesday states. Still, they figured out how to get there.
Satellite interviews. They call up local stations and say, would you like to have your local anchor do an exclusive interview with Bill Clinton or Paul Tsongas or Jerry Brown?
For example, from Dallas the other day, Bill Clinton sat in front of one television camera and conducted interviews by way of satellite with local Texas stations in Laredo, Amarillo, Midland. Then it was on to Providence, Rhode Island, and Jacksonville, Florida. He also spoke with Black Entertainment TV in Washington, D.C., which beamed Clinton and his message back out to its cable outlets across the country.
Next up is KOVR in Sacramento.
Campaigning via satellite was tested in 1988. Now everybody does it.
We don't have the same kind of money that Bill Clinton has, and he's on the attack with his ads.
Bill Clinton will put people first again.
Bill Clinton and President Bush each ended up spending more than $1 million on Super Tuesday ads, allowing them to blanket entire states.
President Bush, the future of America.
Vote for Paul Songas.
The rest only bought ads in select key places.
Jerry Brown continued to speak out against greed and privilege.
Vote Pat Buchanan for president.
Paid for by Buchanan for president.
We wanted to find out how much the candidates' television ads influence voters. 3 out of 4 Republican voters surveyed today, Dan, told us that none of the ads helped them decide who to vote for.
Pull us on. Thanks.
You're welcome.
When we come back, we'll be talking live with former California Governor Jerry Brown. So stay here with us.
I think there's a lot of little gimmicks going around in Washington. There are a lot of insiders, and so I think Governor Brown has perhaps a radical idea, but I don't hear anybody else coming up with any ideas.
Okay, someone else.
She taught us English, but she also taught us hope.
This is a good time.
And when we moved away, I never forgot her.
All week through Friday, AT&T out-of-state calls in the U.S. are just 11 cents a minute from 5 to 11 p.m.
And Mrs. Kramer, our daughter is talking in English.
This is a good time to talk.
A friend like that, you really want to keep forever.
If you'd like to be able to make long-distance calls for just 11 cents a minute more often, this special price is available with a variety of AT&T calling plans. Call for details.
This is a good time to talk.
At last, Alpine Lace free and lean, fat-free and low cholesterol singles made with real cheese. You mean I can eat cheese products again? New free and lean.
Be in great shape, America, with Alpine Lace.
Looks great. But come on, I mean, you know, you could have gotten yourself another BMW or a Lexus.
I suppose, but why? This had everything I wanted. Power, great handling, ABS,
Yeah, but
airbag, leather, everything. I couldn't see spending 10, 20,000 more for what?
Who makes it?
Pontiac. It's the new Bonneville.
Nice.
Who's your favorite actor?
Kevin Costner. Robin Williams. Billy Crystal.
Perfect. What's your favorite movie?
Silence of the Lambs. The Addams Family.
Terminator 2. Terminator 2.
Next Tuesday, you're the Academy.
Why?
Because it's your choice.
Kirstie Alley.
Whoopi Goldberg.
Robin Hood! The People's Choice Awards, hosted by Kenny Rogers, with Richard Dean Anderson, Rob Morrow, Donna Mills, the cast of 90210, Lily Tomlin, and more. The People's Choice Awards next Tuesday.
A live interview with former California Governor Jerry Brown, who is, to some chagrin and to others' delight, still in the race. That's coming up, but joining us first from Miami is our CBS News correspondent Richard Threlkeld, a veteran of covering campaigns and who is in Florida tonight analyzing the results of Governor Clinton's win in Florida. Richard, what are the most significant things to know about what happened in Florida today?
Well, what was on my mind, Dan, in addition to the big Clinton victory, somewhat unexpected, was what's happened this past week. We had 2 campaign dropouts. Bob Kerrey, the New Age Democrat, Tom Harkin, the old-style Democrat. Where do those voters go? Some of them, it seems to me, go to a guy we haven't talked about very much, Jerry Brown. Governor Brown has become sort of the Shakespeare's Puck of the Democratic Party. He has gone to carefully selected caucuses. He has an enchanting message for some voters about the pox on the whole political system, as he likes to put it. And he's won some primaries, likely to win some more. He may not win the nomination, but as he did with Jimmy Carter in 1976, he'll go on to become a kind of Midsummer Night's Nightmare for both Bill Clinton or Paul Songas.
Richard Threlkeld, thanks. Joining us now from a United Auto Workers Union local in Romulus, Michigan, is former California Governor Jerry Brown, former California Governor and candidate for President of the United States. Governor, thank you for being with us tonight. Our latest estimate is you got about 1/4 of the union vote in Massachusetts. Is that the vote you're going directly after in Michigan, and is that why you're in the Union Hall tonight?
I sure am. We had a tremendous reception here. These people know they've been ripped off, they've been lied to, and they just don't understand why all these jobs are going south to Mexico when they have layoffs, when their own families are under stress. It just doesn't make sense. They thought they lived in America, and they look back to Washington, and they just see people who are not delivering.
Governor, you're every bit as aware, perhaps more so than I am, that there are plenty of people, and not all of them Republicans, who say, listen, if the Democratic Party listens to Jerry Brown, if they keep talking about the importance of the union vote, they're destined to go down to defeat in November once again.
Well, I don't care whether you call it union or non-union. Millions of American jobs have been lost because our political system, it's been taken over. Wealthy patrons, campaign consultants, careerism. I mean, it's not serving the people of this country. We're in the midst of a crisis of monumental dimension, and I just don't think they get it yet in Washington. And that's not Democrat or Republican. That's just the truth. And my campaign is based on an insurgency, asking people to take back what belongs to them, and that's their government.
Governor, let's set aside for the moment Illinois and Michigan that are next up. Where is your best chance to win in the West? Would you say Oregon, California, where?
All of the above. I will tell you that, most of the pundits, as you know, wrote us off. And yet this message is so powerful, it tells you there's something fundamentally wrong. And for those that just don't want another cosmetic alteration, but want to do something and make this country live up to its ideals, they're going to take a second look. And you're going to see this movement, and I call it a movement, not just a campaign, growing every week. And if you look at even tonight, you're going to see spots where there's a power that demands that we get our country back. And it's going to grow all across the country.
Governor Jerry Brown, live from Michigan. Thanks for being with us. When we come back, we'll look ahead to next week's important contests in the Midwest.
Well, I didn't vote for anybody for president because I don't think any of them worth a damn, quite frankly.
Thank you.
I wear a partial. This lateral incisor right here.
I lost a bicuspid and a molar.
I lost these two front teeth.
I lost this.
If you wear partials, you know what you've lost. But here's what you've really been missing. New Polidin for partials. Polidin for...
This man blew the whistle on problems at the nuclear plant where he works, so they gave him a new office.
They had me in a radioactive waste room. They felt like I'd quit. Or maybe they felt like it would kill me. I don't know.
Does that sound incredible to you? We'll tell you all about it on the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather tomorrow.
Her rape shattered her life and family. How can she put the pieces back together?
Got to know if you still love me.
Taking Back My Life, Sunday.
As far as the primaries are concerned, the South belongs to Bill Clinton and President Bush. But the South's behind us now. Next week, the campaign moves on to Illinois and Michigan. Bruce Morton takes a look in cold Chicago. Bruce?
Dan, I guess the first piece of advice to the candidates would be if you're coming to Illinois tomorrow, bring your winter woolies. But seriously, this is a good place for the race to come now. You could argue, Paul Tsongas certainly would, that today was regional day. He won in New England, his region. Bill Clinton won in the South, his. This is neutral ground. Whoever does well here will have proved he can win on the road. Illinois should be good news for President Bush. Patrick Buchanan gets way less than that one-third protest vote here he's been getting in other states, but he may score very heavily in Michigan, which of course is an economic basket case hobbled by all the woes of the automobile industry. And these two states together are really a good testing ground for all the candidates, because all the economic problems America faces over and above this recession, the loss of manufacturing jobs that Paul Tsongas talks about, the need for a more skilled workforce that Bill Clinton talks about, all of those problems are here. And these are two good states for the candidates to come to and debate their different ideas. And for once, this is an election where there really are different proposals, different plans. This is a fine place for all of them, Democrats and Republicans, to come and argue it out. Dan?
Bruce, true, untrue, or unknown yet that Clinton is particularly well organized in Illinois?
Clinton is well organized here. That doesn't guarantee success, but it's a leg up, certainly. Michigan, I think, is more open, and neither he nor Senator Tsongas is particularly organizationally strong on the ground there.
Hey, Bruce, get inside from that Chicago cold. We'll talk to you along the campaign trail. Joining us now is political commentator and analyst Kevin Phillips, who joins us live from our Washington Bureau. Kevin, thanks for being with us tonight. Is this election about change with a capital C or a little c?
I think it's about change with a capital C. The Democratic Party is changing in a very real way, rejecting 20 years of not winning anything very much, moving apparently towards the South with Bill Clinton, getting somebody who has that kind of appeal. If Paul Tsongas is rejected by the Democrats, I think that'll be significant in itself. The old Northeastern sort of elitist liberal wing losing out. On the Republican side, the protest against George Bush, the weakness in the economy, the demand for change there, I think you're starting to see the framework, as you say, for change with a capital C, maybe one of those watershed elections.
Kevin, as you read what the results of today's voting, pore over the exit poll information, is it a case of the voters dissatisfied with these candidates or general dissatisfaction, period?
Well, I think there's dissatisfaction across the board, but I've been surprised to see, at least in the South, among the Democrats, there appears to be some sense that they like the candidates. They seem to like Bill Clinton. And I've had the sense that Clinton was really much weaker than he appeared because of the twin scandals, so to speak. But it may be that the South, where they know him best, is saying it doesn't matter. And if they don't matter very much in the South, then the White House ought to watch it, because Clinton without scandals is a very powerful potential candidate.
Kevin, if Bill Clinton were to carry Illinois, would you then be prepared to say he's pretty much got the nomination, or still too soon?
Well, I think if he gets Illinois and Michigan, that we can pretty much take that as a given. Michigan, I guess, is a little bit more of a question mark. At this point, you have to say Clinton should carry Illinois, so I wouldn't wrap it up for him with just that. But if he gets the two big ones in the Great Lakes, he's pretty well headed for that nomination, barring, again, one of these, as some of the wits down here say, another high-heeled shoe dropping.
Kevin Phillips, thank you very much for being with us. When we come back, we will take a look at, not at some high-heel or low-heel shoe droppings, but at tonight's winners and losers, so stay with us.
Kellogg's Cracklin' Oat brand tastes like little oatmeal cookies, which means grandmas are spending a lot less time in the kitchen. Cracklin' Oat brand's great oatmeal cookie taste comes from crunchy whole grain oats, which are baked with a touch of brown sugar. So now you can have that delicious cookie taste whenever.
Come on, Marie.
Which is why grandmas are spending less time making cookies and more time making hay.
Smile, smile.
Kellogg's Cracklin' Oat brand oatmeal cookie taste like grandma used to make.
Its conquests are legend. Germ killer, plaque slayer. Now Listerine faces its greatest challenge. The ever-present threat of the gum disease, gingivitis. Gingivitis, you have met your match. Listerine antiseptic. It says what it does what it says.
It's nothing serious. It only wakes me up a couple of times a week. It really doesn't affect me. I avoid foods that are fried or spicy. I can deal with it. I just take antacids.
If you have frequent heartburn symptoms like acid indigestion or burning in the chest, talk to your doctor. These may be signs of a serious medical problem. Your doctor has treatment plans that can help.
It's only a heartburn. I should learn to live with it. Right?
Frequent heartburn. Isn't it time you talk to your doctor?
So here are the storylines of Super Tuesday night and the headlines of tomorrow. First, for the Democrats, Bill Clinton has carried these states. Clinton carries all of the southern states. Tsongas gets 2. Tsongas wins in his home state, Massachusetts, and also in Rhode Island. Big night for President Bush. He wins everywhere. Pat Buchanan wins nowhere. However, Buchanan continues to wound the Bush Quayle ticket in, for example, Florida. David Duke, out of it virtually nowhere, says he'll stay in the race, but he didn't get many votes anywhere today. So with those, the storylines and the headlines of tomorrow morning, Bill Clinton rolling out of the South now, as clearly designated so by the voters, not by the press. the clear Democratic frontrunner and the man to beat in next week's primaries in the industrial Midwest. Illinois and Michigan now become very important states for Clinton because, as has been stated several times this evening, Bob Schieffer, if Clinton should carry Illinois and Michigan, there'd be a lot of people saying he's going to be the nominee. Indeed, if he carries one of those two, there'll be some people who are saying, well, he's pretty much got it.
Well, if is a very big word. I think what's come out of this tonight, Dan, is we have seen now in this race we have 3 regional candidates. We have Bill Clinton, who's done very well in his neighborhood, the South, which is the biggest neighborhood where they've had primaries so far. We see that Paul Tsongas does well in his neighborhood of New England. And clearly, Jerry Brown has done pretty well out toward the west. The closer you get to California, the better he seems to do. There's no indication tonight that either Tsongas or Clinton, either Tsongas or Brown are going to be getting out of this very soon. But the Midwest is going to be the battleground, and the guy who wins out there is the one who is going to demonstrate, as Dick Threlkill said a while ago, that he can win on the road. We haven't seen anybody do that yet.
Let's take a look at the delegate counts. After all, when it's all said and done, the primaries and caucuses are about delegate counts. These are the delegate counts as of the moment. 2,145 needed to win at the Democratic Convention. Clinton far out front with delegates to date by our CBS News estimate. With the Republicans, far fewer votes needed to win at the convention. 1,105 needed. President George Bush clearly on his way to getting that many. Buchanan says, however, I'm going all the way to the convention. Any idea that Buchanan is going to quit? Buchanan scoffs at it and says, listen, if George Bush thinks he's going to quit, I'm going to quit. Why does he come out and debate me? No sign the president's about to do that. So it goes. Paul Tsongas now has his back to the wall. He needs to show his stuff more. As he turns to Illinois and Michigan, he almost desperately now needs one, if not both of those 2 states. And Jerry Brown, still staying alive, surprises some, confounds others, but there he is as the primary campaign rolls west. Dan Rather with Bob Schieffer, Richard Threlkill, Susan Spencer, and Bruce Morton. We'll see you tomorrow on CBS This Morning and on the CBS Evening News. Good night, everybody.
Stay with CBS News for continuing coverage of Campaign 92.
Experience CBS News.